In this video, I want to talk about some additional ways that we can reference information in a table. So we're going to talk about the hashtag, all, headers, data, totals, and then a couple more examples down here. You've already are familiar with, I have a table designed, and it's called ET for employee table. So you're already familiar with, if you simply select one cell and subtract another cell, it puts in this @ symbol, which means this row, and then notice the square bracket, hire date, and then minus @ symbol, which means this row, a square bracket, birth date. So you didn't have to do anything other than just click on a couple cells and it automatically did this. And so this is the number of days between those two dates. The other thing we've been doing all quarter long, let's say I want to count the number of employees from Austin. So we've been going equal count ifs, parentheses, and then it says, well, what's the criteria range? We use the table name, square bracket, and then the column, in this case location, and comma, and then we're going to look for Austin. So I'm just going to type it this time, colon, and then we close that up. So we've referenced table by using square brackets and then the column. So this is the header of that column. Okay, and then we come back with 6. Well, there are these hashtag references that we can use, and let's see what they return. I'm just going to go equal, and we will go square bracket, and if you type a hashtag, there are these things, and what all does is reference the entire table, and it literally brings back the entire table. It has your headers, it has the total row, all of the information. And by the way, this is called a spill array. You can see that light blue box around it. And if you want to get rid of this information, when you look in the formula bar, this is bold because I'm in the original cell that I typed the formula. If you click anywhere else in the spill array, it will be grayed out a little bit. All I need to do to clear this data is go to the original formula, one single cell, and hit delete, and everything goes away. So I think you'll get the idea what's going to happen when I go square bracket hashtag headers. Well, that is, as you can kind of predict, only going to do the headers. That's these things at the top of the column, and it spills it across just like the headers of our data. And again, it's a spill array. You see the light blue box, and if I want to get rid of it, I can hit delete, and it goes away. ET square bracket hashtag data. So this is going to be everything except the headers and the total row. So it is just the data of the table. So notice it starts with 1024 and it ends at 1036. Does not include the total rows or the headers. Finally, we just saw ET square bracket hashtag totals. So as you can kind of predict, it's only going to return the total row. So there's the total row. If I want a specific total out of the total row, then I need this sequence right here on line 8. So let's go ahead and open this up. I can type a comma and a square bracket. Oops, I need 2 square brackets at the beginning of this. And then when I go to this square bracket right here, it's going to say, well, what row do I want a total from? And so if I say last name and put 2 square brackets, that's only going to return the 13, which by the way is a count function, which also is a subtotal. Notice we have the 103. And so it's just returning the total from that one column. So it's hashtag totals, comma, and then the column that you want the total from. One more example, and we talked about this a long time ago, it was probably in week 3 when we were dealing with X lookup. We can go equal ET square bracket, or 2 square brackets, and I want to return the information last name, and then colon all the way through square bracket location, 2 square brackets. So this is going to return, you can see the blue box over here, last name to location, and it returns all of that data. So for instance, in our return array of an X lookup, we may choose, hey, if we see X1026, I want to return last name through location for that ID, and it would return a row of information across this column through that column. So, okay, why do I want to show you these now? Well, we've been doing these two-way lookup examples, and in that video, we had 2 videos, an X lookup and an index. I was saying right here, let's just edit this. The lookup value was this guy's name. And where were we going to, oops, I clicked on something. Where were we going to look up? Well, this column. And I just selected all of that data right there, right? And then comma X lookup, we were going to look up this ID, this column. And then A10 to G10 was the where right here, the blue boxes. That's where I was going to look for that ID. And then A11 to G23, this red box, is what we were going to return. Okay, so now, given what we just learned of these things, I don't have to select through that data, which is really handy if this was a table with 1,000 rows. I don't have to drag through 1,000 rows, right? So what would that look like? I'm going to go equal X lookup, and in this case, we're still going to look up the person's last name, but just like before, I want to look it up in the last name column. So I can go ET square bracket and last name column. So I don't have to drag through 1,000 rows. I can just use the last name column. Okay. Well, what is the return array? Well, because we're doing a two-way lookup, I don't know. It depends on what the user typed under the info to return. So I am going to look here. Remember, your user can choose ID or last name or hire date or birth date. We don't know what they want to return for this guy. So we're going to look that up. Well, I need to look up whatever they type here. I need to look that up across the headers. Oh, so we can go ET square bracket hashtag headers. And so rather than going A10 to G10, I can just say, yeah, look for the whatever they typed in that box right here, I6, look for it across these headers. And then what's the return array? It was, if you look here, it's A11 to G23. That's this whole red box. That's the data. So you can go ET square bracket hashtag data, hashtag, and then close that up. So that's returning the same thing. We're going to get the 1024 that we have. Oop, I got to close up the first X lookup and the second X lookup. So now when I hit enter, I'm getting the exact same answer, but I'm using table references rather than dragging through the cells like we did right here. And I can do the same thing for the index one. So equal index. If you remember on the index, this is the data that we want to return. So ET square bracket hashtag data. That's it. Square bracket. All right, so that's what we want to return is basically, notice here it's A11 to G23. Well, that's what hashtag data returns. Comma, what row number? Well, this is where we get into our X match. Now we're going to look up the name. And which column do we look up that name in? Oh, ET, I mean, we've already been doing this, last name, square bracket. X match, we have an exact match, so we just type parentheses. And now we want to know which column did the user want to find. Are we looking for this guy's ID? Are we looking for this guy's hire date, birthday? Which column? So that's another X match. Parenthesis, we're going to look up whatever the user selected there. And the lookup array is the headers. So we just go ET square bracket hashtag headers. Square bracket X match is an exact match. We're good with that. So we close up the X match and we close up the index and we hit enter. So again, it's exactly the same as this formula, only we're using hashtag data and then ET one column and ET the headers for the other column. So that's just a little quicker if you had a table with 1,000 records and you wouldn't have to keep going Control Shift Enter or Control Shift down arrow or dragging through those 1,000. You can just reference these areas of the table with hashtags. And just as a reminder, I was choosing somebody's name off this list, so let's go Featherton, and I want this guy's location, right? And so everybody's returning New Orleans in this case. So that was the idea. That's why it's called a two-way lookup. I'm looking down the rows for a name and across the headers for a particular piece of information. So if I want this guy's locker number, and then I get all 45s. Just for practice sakes, let's do one more example. It's this one. Your user is going to put in somebody's name, and then they're going to put in the region, and then they want to return the amount. So right now we have Stolt East is 7069. If it's Central, it's 2413. If I were going to do this using table nomenclature, well, first of all, I have to make this thing a table. So we'll go Insert Table, and it's grabbing everything correctly. It's Table 3. We'll just live with that. So, maybe I'll shorten it up. Let's just go sales. Not that that's that much shorter. Okay, so the table is called sales. Here we go. If I want to use an index match, the information I want to return is all of these numbers. Now, realistically, if you go sales, square bracket, hashtag data, it's going to return even column A. It's going to have the names plus the numbers, but that's going to be okay because when we go X match for the row, in this case, we're going to look up the guy's name and then comma, sales, square bracket, the last name. So we're going to look up the name, and that's going to determine the row out of our array, right? So Stoltz is going to be row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then what column out of our array? Well, we do an X match again. Parenthesis, the lookup value is the region. And now here, when we go sales, square bracket, hashtag headers, the headers will include all of this. So our data, which is A through E, all of this area is our data, matches the same number of columns as our headers, which is A through E. And so it matches exactly. We're okay. And so we can now close that up and hit enter. Oh, I got to close up the, oh, it did it for me. I was missing a parentheses and it found it. Whereas when we did it here, oh, this was with an X lookup. Let me do index, and we'll just select the data. The array, if I do just the numbers, so now I ignored column A, right? And by the way, notice what it did, sales, east to central. Cool. And then we go X match, we're looking up the name one more time, comma, and then sales, square bracket, last name, square bracket. Now it's on this one, X match. What's my lookup value? It's that region. But now where am I looking? Don't grab column A in this case because your array is starting in B. Our array starts in B. So in this case, we would only grab the hashtag headers east colon central because we need to match our index array. So when central is column 1, 2, 3, 4, well, that's column 4 in our array too. 1, 2, 3, 4. So one mistake students sometimes will make is they'll grab column A for the array and column B through E for the headers, and then things don't line up. This is returning column 1 when it finds east, and column 1 is the last name of your data array. So that's a problem. So anyway, hit enter on that. We'll get the same answer. It had to just add that extra parenthesis. So that's it. It's a little bit quicker to reference your table using these hashtags than having to drag through all the columns.